start this session, I will ask to Mr. Di Cola to present all the things that the Taekwondo Federation is doing regarding the social project, regarding the organization for the youth, mostly, and also for the minorities. So could you explain what your federation is doing to improve the life of the citizens of the world?
Good afternoon. Je vais parler en anglais parce que c'est plus simple. So don't worry, it's okay. I'm sorry about it. Anyways, so the World Taekwondo, which is the international federation, founded a foundation in 2016 in order to help minorities, refugees, etc., to get out of their situation through sport, through Taekwondo specifically. And so recently we've opened a lot of refugee camps, and in refugee camps we have created academies in order to help them get out of that situation. The children especially, we have a particular focus on the youth because they are the future, and we try to put forward a sustainable plan essentially for the future. And now we're trying to work with other international federations in order to make this more complete rather than just one federation doing something on their end. So the basic precept now that the system has been proved to work is to move on and help other federations go forward and make it more sustainable.
And so you have both long-term project and short-term project.
So the short-term project is pretty much what's happening right now. And the long-term project is to work with other federations, other partnerships, etc., to touch as many people as possible, especially refugees right now, but we don't leave ourselves to just that group. Right, so eventually we're planning on expanding, on working with other people, touch other minorities, etc.
And you succeed by asking to champion, for example, gold medalist and so on, to come with you in refugee camps to show an example and to perform something.
Well, I mean, yes, in terms of yeah, I mean, we have to, but the focus is on refugees themselves and not on champions, etc., because sport is not just a competition.
No, I mean that the fact to have a champion in a refugees camp is something which is very special, even for the refugees. They could understand that they are important because someone who has won a gold medal is coming to see us and to train us.
Yes, exactly. But essentially, we want refugees to have the opportunity to compete as well. So it's to pass by example the opportunity for refugees as well to compete at the highest levels.
And in Rio, there is a refugee team which has DUDFIELD and which has played for the first time in history. Do you plan to train people to be able to participate as a refugee in a Tokyo Olympic Games in 2 years from now?
Well, I mean, that's always the objective, right, is to get people to actually reach those levels and go. So far, THF, so the foundation I represent, has been sustaining financially one refugee, particularly in Austria. And yes, we do hope that he will go to Tokyo. But we're looking much for...
And are you going in every continent? I mean, do you have specific refugee camp, Middle East, Asia? You have a lot of refugees now in Venezuela, for example. So are you worldwide or are you focused on some area?
Well, so far, we are focused worldwide because the refugee crisis is everywhere. As you mentioned, Venezuela, but then you also have Syrian refugees, etc. So far, we're mainly based in Middle East and in Africa. But, I mean, you know, we have to be careful with our donations and, like, the finances, obviously. But if we could, we would be everywhere.
And have you planned to show to other federations how to deal with this issue? Because you have created a model, by the fact. And do you plan to show this model to, I mean, the judo, the other sports who could do the same and to have other federations training people in refugee camps?
Well, we already have succeeded in securing an MOU with the Wrestling Federation.
Okay.
But the objective is to move forward, yeah, with judo, etc. And these are talks that are going on right now. So we're already succeeding in that.
How many people are were treated by you? Do you have some figures of some numbers of the people you could have reached during all these activities?
Yeah, surely. Only in Turkey, in one camp, we had 700 students, ranging from any age, pretty much. So that's just one camp, and then you have another 300 here and there. So eventually we are reaching about maybe 2,000, 3,000 people.
And how do you assess the result? I mean, that people feel better, that do you have a kind of assessment to see what is good behavior and what could be improved?
Well, the first thing is to ask the refugees themselves, obviously, because that is
what you are doing?
Well, so far, yes, of course, we've been doing it. The children themselves have been very happy with what's happening. You know, they feel more safe, obviously, because it is a martial arts. Yeah. But on top of that, you have repercussions on the families, on the camps as a whole. And yeah, through interviews so far, it's been the most secure way of having an idea of what's going on. But obviously, through the feedback of coaches, federations, local federations. So we're trying to see everyone that's been impacted by it or that has worked in it and what their feedback is.
And it's addressed to everybody, I mean, whatever the age, whatever the gender?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from, how old you are. Everyone can practice Taekwondo. Mm-hmm.
Petite précision, on va dire que comme on parle de sport, il n'y a que des hommes à la tribune. Il y a eu un changement, il y avait des femmes, la table était plus paritaire initialement, mais on a eu des changements, donc n'allez pas dire que le sport est uniquement une affaire d'hommes, ce n'est pas le cas, et c'est juste un changement de table ronde. Je vais me tourner vers Yuri DJORKAEFF, parce que c'est une bonne transition, mais tout d'abord, bon Yuri, tout le monde connaît ta carrière. Tu étais encore joueur en activité à New York et tu as décidé de créer une fondation pour développer cela qui s'adressait surtout aux enfants. Peux-tu peut-être préciser un peu ce qu'a été ta fondation alors que tu étais encore en activité comme joueur professionnel à New York?
Oui, bonjour tout le monde. C'est vrai qu'à New York, peut-être pour ma première fois de ma vie, j'avais 38 ans, j'étais à la fin de ma carrière. J'ai fait une blessure, voilà. Je me suis blessé. Et quand vous êtes sportif de haut niveau et vous blessez, eh ben, vous faites chier, ça c'est sûr.
Ça va, tu t'es pas trop fait chier, vu que c'est la première à 38 ans, ça allait quoi.
Mais vous avez beaucoup de temps pour réfléchir. Et c'était la première fois, je crois, de ma carrière où j'ai eu du temps pour moi et pour réfléchir. J'étais dans mon canapé, assis, allongé, et je ne pouvais pas bouger. Et je me suis vraiment posé des questions que dans votre quotidien, vous n'avez pas le temps, ou vous n'avez pas des fois l'envie, mais surtout vous êtes poussé toujours pour le prochain objectif. Je me suis dit, tout ce que j'ai fait, 38 ans, j'ai commencé à 15 ans professionnel, ça faisait une longue carrière, et qu'est-ce qui me restait comme les grands champions, on dit toujours, il ne faut pas avoir de regrets, mais je sentais surtout dans un pays comme les États-Unis et une ville comme New York, je sentais le besoin d'aller vers les autres et de redonner. Vous savez tous, New York, comment cette ville est incroyable, où vous pouvez vous créer une opportunité à chaque coin de rue. Et là, c'était à mon tour de créer une opportunité pour les jeunes. Bien sûr, le football étant mon outil le plus important, j'avais envie, et je me suis rendu compte parce que je connaissais bien cette ville-là, j'avais envie d'aller vers des populations qui n'avaient pas accès au sport. Quand on pense aux États-Unis, on pense tous que les gens ont du sport à chaque coin de rue ou dans chaque école, ce qui est faux. Surtout dans l'État de New York, où il y a beaucoup de boroughs, de villes qui sont en défaillite, où le sport vient loin derrière tout ça. Donc j'ai commencé à faire des programmes de sport pour les jeunes défavorisés dans un quartier qui s'appelle Inwood. C'est juste au-dessus d'Harlem, vous voyez, c'est sur l'île de Manhattan, c'est pas au Bronx, c'est pas à Brooklyn, c'est pas au Jersey, c'est dans Manhattan. Et il y a des quartiers encore dans Manhattan où les jeunes n'ont pas accès au sport. Donc on a commencé ça pendant 4 ans, on a fait ce programme-là. Aujourd'hui, il est sustainable, comme on dit. Ça veut dire qu'on a mis des coachs en place, on a mis des fonds en place où, justement, ce programme peut tourner tout seul sans l'aide de la Yuri DJORKAEFF Fondation. Derrière, on a été un peu plus loin dans ma fondation. On a vu que ce qu'on avait fait à New York pouvait être fait autre part. Et je me suis rendu compte qu'il y avait aussi d'autres populations, on va dire d'autres enfants, qui étaient dans le besoin. Et si je peux continuer un peu plus, toujours en habitant à New York, je faisais souvent des allers-retours à Paris. Et un soir, en décalage horaire, je regarde Arte avec un bon burger et mon coca. Je bois, tout ça, 5 heures du matin, décalage. Et d'un coup, je vois une émission sur la jungle de Calais. Et j'ai eu un choc. J'ai dit, attendez, ça, c'est pas en France. Calais, c'est partout, pas en France. Et cette émission-là, je me souviens toujours, elle m'a marqué. Le lendemain, je suis rentré à New York. J'ai été directement à UNICEF, US. Et j'ai dit, voilà, je suis Yuri DJORKAEFF, champion du monde, etc. J'ai raconté mon curriculum. Je veux faire quelque chose pour les réfugiés. Parce que avant qu'ils arrivent à Calais, il y a tout un chemin où il fallait que je remonte la source. Pas aller jusqu'à la source, parce que je suis pas encore, ma fondation n'est pas assez costaud encore pour aller dans ces pays-là. Mais la porte, un petit peu, était la Grèce. Donc ça m'a pris 2 ans à harceler l'UNICEF, à faire un partenariat avec eux, pour aller cet été faire un programme de 8 semaines à Athènes pour les réfugiés syriens, irakiens, afghans, tous ces jeunes-là qui arrivent en Grèce et qui attendent un petit peu d'être déplacés dans d'autres...
Quand tu dis harceler l'UNICEF, c'est que ça n'a pas été, normalement, on peut penser qu'une organisation internationale qui voit quelqu'un qui est très connu comme toi, champion du monde, et tu as une carrière quand même effectivement longue, les titres se sont entassés, normalement, ils devraient t'ouvrir les bas et dire « Chic, non, ça n'a pas été aussi facile que ça, alors ». Ils
m'ont ouvert les portes, mais ça n'allait pas assez vite.
Pascal. Oui, ils ne peuvent pas aller aussi vite que toi aussi. C'est pas
moi. Et bon, c'est vrai que j'avais comme je suis aussi, on va dire, c'est ma propre fondation. Je suis le client, mais c'est aussi moi qui fais le programme. Donc c'est vrai qu'avec UNICEF, pour eux, c'était la première fois qu'ils incorporaient un programme de football dans leur programme. Et c'est pour ça que ça a pris du temps. Mais c'est sûr que je peux te donner un deuxième exemple. Une de mes premières volontés était d'avoir des programmes mixtes. La mixité dans le sport est une chose qui me tient à cœur. Je l'ai fait à New York, mais je voulais le faire aussi avec les réfugiés. Et on m'a dit c'est pas possible. On m'a dit c'est pas possible parce que il y a des problèmes de religion, il y a des problèmes les garçons, les filles, ça ne va pas ensemble. J'ai dit écoutez-moi bien. Le sport, il n'y a pas de religion, il n'y a pas de couleur. Il y a un ballon qui roule, pour le cas du football, il y a un ballon qui roule et tout le monde court derrière, on joue avec, etc., etc. Je me suis battu avec l'UNICEF, je dis bien battu, mais c'est pas contre eux, c'est pas contre l'institution UNICEF, c'est contre les clichés qu'il peut y avoir des fois dans des grandes corporates, dans des grandes organisations. J'ai réussi à avoir les filles d'un côté et les garçons de l'autre, la même heure, le même moment, tous les jours. C'était pas possible de les mixer, mais j'ai réussi à avoir les garçons et les filles. Et ce qui a été génial, c'est que, et c'est là où c'est extraordinaire, c'est que le premier jour du programme, il y avait 2 filles afghanes, 2 sœurs afghanes qui s'entraînaient. Elles ont retrouvé leur frère depuis 1 an qu'ils l'avaient perdu. Ils étaient dans 2 shelters différents. Donc le premier jour du programme, il y a eu une réunion de famille sur le même terrain. Donc je me suis dit,
rien que pour ça, mission réussie.
On avait mission réussie, et c'est vrai qu'on s'est aussi ouvert des portes pour la suite, pour justement mixer les programmes de sport, même si des fois on peut penser que la religion ou la couleur ou quoi que ce soit peut mettre une barrière, le sport doit résister à ces choses-là.
Merci, bravo en tous les cas, ne serait-ce que ce saint exemple et tout le reste. It's a good transition to address Mr. DUDFIELD. How does sport, according to you, could contribute to process of reconciliation after a war or fighting between different groups?
Let me start with a thank you to the forum organisers for inviting us here. Those who are looking closely at the programmes would notice I'm not the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland. Unavoidable circumstance at the last minute meant she could not travel. So if you like, you can consider me the last-minute injury replacement. And, of course, that did affect our gender balance on the panel, so apologies in that regard. In response to the question, the role sport can play in peace building and reconciliation, I'd like to ask people this question. Did you have a different relationship with a coach, a physical education, a physical activity instructor than you did with, say, a teacher or a worker in a more formal environment? Sometimes that relationship can be a lot better. Other times it can be the opposite. But I think what it reinforces is that sport essentially is a site for socialisation, and it's a social activity. And that site and that social activity opens up the potential and the opportunity for new and different relationships to be formed. Now, we like to talk to three different types of relationships, or three different ways sport can be used effectively in that regard. One is a hook. Now, it can draw people together to a social space that may not typically be drawn together. And we've seen examples of sport being a site for some interstate dialogue that may not have occurred outside of that environment. It can also be a facilitator in terms of there's various activities that can happen in a well-delivered sporting activity with skilled facilitators that can create a lot of teachable moments that can help to build bridges or challenge various stereotypes about different groups or different communities who may be in conflict. And then lastly, and I think this speaks to some of the first 2 points, it can be a demonstrator. So actually at high levels, at high profile levels.
Do you have a precise example of these three kinds of activities?
Certainly. So I think in terms of sport as a hook, some of the interstate diplomacy, we saw some dialogue and discussion around the Korean Peninsula earlier this year at that interstate level. In terms of facilitator, I think it's worthwhile and important across this concept to say that sport is not a panacea. It's not a solution to these complex issues, but it can make a contribution. And a good way to look at that is either we have a framework where we say we have sport plus, so we add various elements to sport. I was just in Jamaica, which is one of the Commonwealth's 53 member countries, and working with both the Boxing Board of Jamaica, speaking with the Boxing Board of Jamaica, and speaking with an organisation called Fight for Peace, working in some of the areas of Kingston where there is some issues with gang violence. And the Sport Plus part is about bringing police and other law enforcement agencies to the sporting activity within those communities to create a different relationship between young people in those communities and those agencies and institutions. If we talk about plus sport and we can go to a policy level, this is where you have other activities that are not involving sport, and you bring sport in to add another dimension to the objectives. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, which is aiming to promote reconciliation with the Aboriginal and Indigenous people of that country, made 5 recommendations or calls to action around how sport could help promote reconciliation in that country, and again about using those spaces for socialisation to create different relationships. Over the last 2 budgets, the government has invested $66 million into those 5 calls for action around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
You have kind of Olympic Games inside Commonwealth. Do you use it as a diplomatic tool, the Commonwealth game?
Certainly. So, interestingly, the Commonwealth Games were held this year on the Gold Coast, Australia, my home country. I'll put that plug in there. And in fact, the editor of BBC Sport, Daniel Rohn, said that Games helped redefine how sport sees its role and relationship with society. How? They used this Sport Plus model. For example, the Games was the first major sport event in Australia to have a reconciliation action plan around the Games. And again, that was about using opportunities that would come out of hosting the Games to support issues like employability for Indigenous communities in Australia, to raise public dialogue around issues to do with reconciliation and put it firmly in the public conscious. It was also the first major sport games to have parity in medals for men and women, which draws me back to the first point around the opportunity for sport to be a demonstrator. So when we see parity in terms of number of medals for men and women, we have at that high level sport acting as a demonstrator. So certainly I think the objective of the Commonwealth Games Federation, who are the governing body for that organisation and work closely with ourselves as the intergovernmental body for the 53 member states of the Commonwealth, is to use that game as a real demonstrator of the role sport can play as a contributor to these issues, not a panacea.
Yeah.
And there's definite intentional strategies and policies to use.
So sport is not a magic wand, that it's a useful tool. And regarding, for example, the difficult relationship between India and Pakistan, are you using sport to try not to end the war or their kind of relationship, but to improve, to ease tensions?
Well, I think also we see some examples over a number of years, 20, 30 years, of what's fondly known as cricket diplomacy, and that use of sport as a hook, where it enables leaders and those engaged in dialogue around relations between those two countries have been able to use that platform of cricket to open up dialogue that may not have been possible outside of those environments. So that term has certainly found its way into the lexicon of some of the diplomacy language, and that cricket diplomacy, if you like.
Okay, thank you. Mr. THAWADI, your country will organize the World Cup, next World Cup in 2022. Before the World Cup in Russia, there is always some threat on the fact that maybe the World Cup could be cancelled and that Qatar will not be able to organize it. No, do you think that the World Cup is secure in your own country?
We've said it from the very beginning, from day one, that the World Cup is secure. As you correctly pointed out, ever since we won the right to host the World Cup, there was always rumors or discussions surrounding this matter, but there was never any basis, any actual basis. It was mainly gossip, if you will.
No smoking gun.
Sorry?
No smoking gun.
No smoking gun, as you say. Well, actually, a lot less than a smoking gun. I think what happened was during that time, we as a first Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim nation to host the World Cup, we were surrounded by a lot of, I would say, misinformation about Qatar and the capabilities of Qatar. And it reinforced our belief as to why the first World Cup in the Middle East had to come. And now was the time for it to come, because there is, as everybody knows and realizes, there is no hook as powerful as a sporting event, and in particular, no sporting event as great and as fantastic as the World Cup. I'm sure Yuri can agree to this as a participant. And the great thing about it is it sheds the light on a country and a region. We saw the first World Cup the first African World Cup in South Africa, and for any of those who've lived it, it was truly a fantastic experience for the Rainbow Nation and for the African continent. The first World Cup in Russia in 2018 was a fantastic opportunity as well for the average individual, the average person, to engage with the people of the region and get to know each other. And it breaks down barriers, it breaks down stereotypes, it breaks down former ideas that are built, and it leaves aside narratives that are put for political reasons. It becomes human-to-human interaction. That's effectively what the World Cup offers. That's effectively what any sporting event offers. And I believe the first World Cup in the Middle East is the perfect opportunity for the world to see the Middle East and see the Arab world for who we are. Hospitable, welcoming, have a great sense of humor if you understand our jokes. That was a joke, by the way. And it's a great platform for that discussion. But at the same time, what the World Cup also offers is for us, as the Arab world, to engage and interact with ourselves, and at the same time to see the outside world for what they are as well, for no different than ourselves. To break away this narrative that is creeping more and more on a daily basis now, and you see it more and more, of separationism, of elitism, of we are different than you and we have to be separate.
So the World Cup is a way to fight a clash of civilization.
I believe so. I believe any major event, by the way, and any major sporting opportunity, actually any sporting opportunity, whether it's a small little tournament of billiards or pool, or the greatest tournament in the world, which is the World Cup, is an absolute antidote to the clash of civilizations. It promotes our differences, which we have to promote. We have
But by respecting each other.
Sorry?
By respecting each other.
That's exactly it. We have to respect our differences. We have to respect the fact that we have different cultures, different backgrounds, different beliefs. But in the end, that does not mean that we cannot accept each other.
And what do you foresee as a legacy for your country and for the region? In the Middle East, there is some legacy for the youth, for the people, and what will happen after the 22?
From the very beginning, from the very first day we submitted our bid, we thought about legacy. And we thought about delivering our legacy before the World Cup. We had the great opportunity of preparing for the World Cup 12 years in advance. So we launched a lot of initiatives. You see, we believe and we truly try to deliver on the transformative power of the World Cup. And when we talk about major events, we're not looking at an event that is 28 days or 30 days during that time. It's not just the infrastructure. The biggest legacy any major sporting event can leave is what has it contributed to improve people's lives? What has it contributed towards improving the human development of the people of the host country or the host region? And for us, this is truly not a Qatar
not only in Qatar, but all in all
it is
the
in the Middle Eastern Arab World Cup. From the very first beginning, we always said this is not a Qatari World Cup, and the benefits cannot remain within Qatar. Because if it does, then we failed. This is an Arab World Cup, it is a Middle Eastern World Cup, and the benefits have to reach the people of the region. So in doing that, we've launched many different initiatives beyond the standard legacy initiatives that people do. So for example, we launched a program called Generation Amazing. What it does is it utilizes football for development in people in underdeveloped areas. We developed a curriculum using football, which enhances leadership skills, communication skills, civic engagement skills, an awareness of the role of the individual in the community, both for young children as well as young boys and young girls, but also for people within, let's say, on the fringe of society. So we've worked in Nepal, in underprivileged villages in Nepal. We've been in refugee camps in Jordan. We've been in Bangladesh. We've had a number of initiatives that we've launched. Today, Generation Amazing reaches about 300,000 people. Our aim by 2022 is to reach 1 million underprivileged people. Some of the success stories that we've had are fantastic. A young lady from Pakistan who, through Generation Amazing, moved on to launch the first league in her region for women. She's also been asked to speak in a number of local NGO events against violence within her region. We've had a number of great successful. One other success was 2 individuals who learned this communication and leadership skills and were able to implement that during the flooding that happened in Kerala, where they were able to rally the community and contribute to fighting this natural tragedy that occurred in Kerala. So this is in terms of Generation Amazing. We're now launching a bigger initiative in relation to refugees on 5 different countries in 5 different continents, which we will be launching officially in January with the International Rescue Committee. So that's in terms of utilizing football as a developer for underprivileged children. But we've also launched a number of other initiatives. We've launched Institut, which is an institution that develops and improves the skills of people working in the sporting industry, all ranges of sporting industry, from the legal aspect, from the commercial aspect, from event management, the hospitality industry. We've partnered up with great institutions like Georgetown University and Liverpool University, as well as industry experts and industry leaders, such as, for example, IMG. As one of the companies that has contributed. And what it does is it contributes to developing the skills of individuals looking to work in the sporting industry. Because we believe in the Middle East, we are fanatical about sports. There's a lot of money that goes into sports. But the sporting industry in the Middle East is still not an engine for economic development yet. And one of the aspects that you need to do to make sure that it's an engine, it's a truly functioning engine, is to have the people within that industry improve their skills on a continuous basis and network with industry experts, and that's what Jasur offers. Last thing that we launched as well was an initiative to support the small and medium enterprises within the region of the Middle East and the Arab world, which is called Challenge 22. So every year we issue challenges, 2 to 3 challenges, in different sectors, whether it's IT, fan experience, environmental sustainability, and so on. And we look for companies within the region, small and medium enterprise companies within the region, to contribute their solutions to our challenges. The winners, or the people that we choose, would have financial support, they would have an investment, they would have mentoring, and also a commitment from our side that they would be part of our supply chain as well, which would hopefully then launch them into a regional and global marketplace.
Thank you very much. Very good intervention for the 4 speakers, so a big applause for our 4 speakers. And we'll switch to the Q&A from the audience. So I guess that there is some micro, and you could speak French or English, whatever.
For me, one of the biggest gaps that I've seen in sport for development and sport diplomacy is we have a lack of coordination. So you have the private sector that has all of the resources, the sport federations that have all the money, and the know-how with sport. But then on the international organizations, you have the knowledge of how development works. But I think that there's a big gap between the two. And so I know some of you guys, we have representatives from the sport sector as well as the public. In your opinion, how can we leverage these partnerships, and how can we move forward in this? Thank you.
Who want to answer? Yeah.
I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. I do think that there is a gap in my personal opinion. I think one of the reasons is because international organizations still look at sports today, dare I say it, to a certain extent, in a very superficial way, in the sense of how can you, when you're talking about gender equality and gender engagement, usually you look at it in terms of let's bring a speaker, let's bring somebody to represent. That's in terms of international organizations. Usually let's bring speakers, let's have conversations. But in terms of actual initiatives on the ground, it's usually left, as you said, with private sectors or local federations. I think from our side, it's always been a call to action. We've been engaging with, we've been able to surface both sides, and we've been working towards a recognition of the need to dig deeper into the initiatives, the need to actually have forums where, maybe similar to this, where you're not only talking about the initiatives generally, you're not only speaking about generalities, about the power of sports, and then reeling somebody that represents a certain industry or certain sport, but rather actually dig deeper into finding initiatives, into demanding that there's a call of action, into demanding, for example, that sports it has a more functional role, more engaging role in the SDGs, in the UN SDGs, for example, Sustainable Development Goals. And it's something that we've been trying to promote over the years from our side at least. It's still I think we need more events such as these, and more importantly, we need to see more results. We need to see more calls to action, specific calls to action on that matter. At least that's my 2 cents on the matter.
Mr. Dunfield? It will be automatic.
I might pick up on the point of the reference that the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda provides for this coordination. In the preamble to the SDGs, there's recognition of the growing contribution of sport to a range of areas of sustainable development. Taking that impetus, the number of actors in the global community, sports community, intergovernmental, governmental, civil society, came together to help develop and adopt the Kazan Action Plan, which defines the contributions that sport can make to the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, and the different roles for different actors. Critically, it talks to 3 areas that I think are essential to coordination, but also to ensure there is scaled impact. 1, there's equitable access for all. Number 2, this is underpinned by good governance, protection and promotion of human rights within a sporting context, and safeguarding those who participate. And then thirdly, being very targeted around which SDGs, which targets, which areas of the global agenda sport can contribute to. I think that's important because often we can be very vague and rhetorical, but now with global policy norms and global plans saying these are the specific contributions that sport-based approaches can make to these specific SDG targets, it gives other actors, be they those in private sector, those in the governmental, those in third sector of civil society. It gives those actors a clear space as to how they can utilise and partner with sports. I think that overarching global policy framework and plan addresses that specific challenge.
Mr. Decola, you want to add some comments?
If I may, I don't completely disagree nor agree with you, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I was telling you that, for example, the reason why the foundation that I'm representing today is here is because there is more coordination, at least in the Taekwondo Federation, between sports diplomacy and sporting in general. As soon as the reconciliation process happened in Korea between the two governments, most of the federations from the north and the south visited each other as a result of it, and Taekwondo particularly, because it is the sport of the peninsula, has been critical. It has been truly critical. So, yes, I agree with you. There's a lot that needs to be done, but it's too easy to say that all sporting federations are the same. It's not true. You need to particularly look at who can work with who, and you just need to look for the opportunities as well. For example, sports diplomacy has been particularly important recently, right? For example, yesterday in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, you had a run of 10 kilometers between Eritreans and Ethiopians. I don't want to talk much about it, but they haven't had the best relationships in recent years. So clearly, yes, there is sports diplomacy, and there is a big problem in coordination. But you need people to move forward. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to talk with other federations to move forward. It hasn't really, so far, we don't have any actual statistics or anything. But we've been moving forward, slowly but surely.
Thanks. Another question?
I would like you to have a response regarding this topic. All around the world, we've got programs in which we work with inclusive program by sport. And we know that we will have the 2024 Olympic Games, and we'll have the World Cup. And is there a place in your initiative for people with disability? And thanks for Neymar Jr. being one of our very important people, giving his image for us and to fight with us regarding those forgotten people around the world. So daily, what can be done and what are your policies?
Yuri, tu...
Oui, tout à fait. C'est vrai que c'est une situation aussi qui me touche beaucoup, qui m'interpelle comment on peut réunir tous ces acteurs, tous ces enfants ou tous ces gens qui ont besoin sur le même terrain. Aujourd'hui, ma fondation n'est pas assez grande pour pouvoir donner accès à tout le monde. J'ai fait un choix de m'orienter sur des enfants en difficulté, mais pour l'instant, c'est une question qui me travaille. J'espère avoir une fondation beaucoup plus grande pour pouvoir répondre à votre question.
So.
Thank you for the question. I do agree with you. It's from our side, again, as our World Cup, one of our main goals was inclusivity, and definitely the sector of, especially in relation to the disabled people. So what we've done about 6 years ago, we launched an initiative called the Accessibility Forum. And the purpose of that was to engage with people with disability within our community in Qatar, to find out not just in terms of how can they participate or what services can we offer them as fans, whether it's in terms of accessibility and so on, but more importantly, how can we engage with them so that they actually participate in delivering the World Cup as well. So we've been looking at launching programs in that regards. And over the last 6 years, we've been engaging and discussing with them on issues relating to policy, whether it's in terms of transportation, accommodation, and so on, how to make things easier. But at the same time, what programs can we launch and the initiatives that we engage with them and they participate with us so that they contribute to delivering the World Cup. And maybe one thing, one example of something that during the accessibility forum we listened to and we delivered on was we engaged with a number of parents who had disabled children, and especially with autism and so on. And one of the things for them was that they wouldn't be able to take their children to stadiums because just the environment over there was not friendly for them. And what we did was we created a room in one of the first stadium that we finished, which was about a few years ago, Khalifa Stadium. We created a room specifically designed with their needs in mind. And they were able to attend the opening ceremony of the stadium and the Emir's Cup final, which is the cup final for ourselves. And it was a great success. And when I was speaking to one of the mothers, for her it was a great success because finally her children are actually engaging in, they're attending a sporting event. They can actually be part of that celebration. So no doubts, there's as I said, it's at the forefront of our mind. FIFA itself promotes these policies, but for us, in terms of the World Cup, we're going beyond that in the sense of how do we have them engage in delivering the World Cup? How can we address the different elements? How can we're speaking to parents? We're looking at children. We're looking at people who from different sectors, different walks of life to understand how can we incorporate them in the entire journey of the World Cup.
Mr. DUDFIELD?
There's one quite well-versed saying from the business world that I think is a useful response, not just for this issue, but a range of inclusivity issues around sport. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Now, there's some debate about that saying, but in terms of the interplay of sport and a range of development and inclusion issues, there needs to be more effective measurement, and particularly scaled measurement. We have a lot of stories about this change for this individual or that individual, including people living with a disability. But there's a dearth of data to say actually at a population level, at a national level, how inclusive is sport? How inclusive is the infrastructure for sport? The Commonwealth Secretariat is currently coordinating an international initiative under the auspices of the Kazan Action Plan that I mentioned previously around helping to better measure the contribution that sport can make to the Sustainable Development Goals. Disaggregating data, drawing on lessons of groups like the Washington Group, who have looked at effective data and statistical collection around people with disability, is helping to guide that work. But I would say we need to move from the individual anecdotal stories to looking at scaled data around sport as critical to ensure we have inclusivity across the sporting ecosystem.
Thanks. Another question?
My question is for Hassan. You mentioned about legacy, not just for your nation, but for the region. But standing at Bole International Airport, which is an Ethiopian airport, every time a flight would come from your country, from countries from your region, it's always planes full of dead bodies who are maids who have gone to your country to do some work, but are being sent in a box. How are you ensuring that the people, the thousands of people that are going to your nation to build stadiums and so on, whose human rights will be protected by your nation? You talk about legacy as if having thousands of people coming to your nation is a big deal, but it's the human rights that's lacking in your nation. And are you willing to open up of the kinds of people that have been injured working in those stadiums, building those infrastructures in your country? Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising that question. I think it's very important to highlight a few things. I think first you identify the thousands of people that have been injured in building the stadiums. I would like to say that is not the case. When it comes to our stadiums, we have... actually, let me take a step back and tell you what we've done on the issue of worker rights and worker welfare, both as an organization that I'm responsible for, as well as the state and the initiatives that the state has done. There is no doubt the issue of workers' welfare is an issue that is a global issue, but definitely within our region, it is a big issue. Especially when it comes to the construction industry, it wasn't the best organized place, and definitely the one that a lot of abuses occurred. But in understanding the transformative power of the World Cup, when we first won the right to host the World Cup, we launched an initiative to look at what were the issues that people were suffering from. What issues can we work towards improving? How can we serve as a catalyst to improve the conditions of workers, whether it's their accommodation sites, whether it's on terms of health and safety standards, and how can we make sure, more importantly, that these initiatives are being done and will remain after the World Cup, that they are not something in response to criticism, but it is something that we're doing out of our own belief to improve people's lives and to ensure that their human rights are respected. And from the very first day we launched these initiatives, we developed within the Supreme Committee worker welfare standards that are incorporated into the contracts of anybody working with us. They address issues of accommodation, they address issues of health and safety, they address issues of sourcing. So when people leave their countries and come to us, ethical recruitment issues, we have also addressed them within our contract. At the next stage, when we developed these standards, we engaged with international NGOs, experts in that field, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the International Labour Organization, including also we've engaged with trade unions as well, the Builders and Woodworkers Institute International, a very big trade union which has an experience and expertise in World Cups, previous World Cups as well. ITUC, the International Trade Union Confederation as well, we've engaged with them as well in developing our standards. We've moved on from there also to include areas of ensuring that we're transparent in all the initiatives that we're undertaking and the developments that are occurring. So whether it comes to the statistics in terms of accidents, statistics including work-related deaths, as well as statistics including non-work-related deaths, which are normally in the construction industry not reported. We have taken it upon ourselves to ensure that annually we issue a report that shows our progress, the work that we've done, and the challenges that we have faced in implementing our standards, as well as highlighting the statistics of the incidents that have occurred and ensuring that we have a thorough investigative process for any of these incidents that do occur. In ensuring also, in the spirit of transparency, we have engaged with a third-party auditor, Impact, a company that is experienced in worker welfare audits, has worked in audited companies such as, for example, Apple and so on internationally. It is based in England, to audit us every year and issue a report that we have no control over. They issue it every year annually in terms of the progress that we've made, if there's any setbacks that we've had, and again, recommendations on what to do for the year to go forward. We have also signed an MOU with BWI to come and assist us both in terms of our inspections, to train our people as well in terms of health and safety and improving our health and safety standards, as well as what we've launched as well. We've launched an initiative within the Supreme Committee work called Worker Welfare Forums. Now, as many of you might know or might not know, in Qatar we do not have any trade unions, but what we've done is we've developed a worker welfare forum that allows for workers, one, to vote their representatives, two, to create a forum where they can raise any issues that they have, any concerns that they have, without any fear of retaliation. And over the years, when we first launched these initiatives, and we were looking at the minutes of meetings of these meetings, we noticed that the workers would raise issues such as, for example, in relation to food, very simple stuff. We knew that potentially it was the reason they were raising these issues was because they were not comfortable. They did not feel safe enough to raise these issues. So we've launched many initiatives, including utilizing behavioral insight experiments to ensure that they feel empowered to raise their concerns, to the extent that just recently now, when we had observers from human rights organizations attending some of these worker welfare meetings, being surprised that the issues that were being raised were working hours, wages, were they enough or not, and so on and so forth. So these worker welfare forums have become places where workers feel safe enough to raise their concerns and raise their issues. In terms of our health and safety standards, both on the construction sites and inside accommodations as well, we have had representatives of trade unions from Switzerland and Germany commending us on the high level of standards that we have on our sites, on our stadium sites, as well as on our accommodation sites. This is not to say that the journey is ended. This is to say that there's still a lot more work to be done. It is unacceptable for anybody to work in any place to feel that their human rights are being stepped over. It is unacceptable, plain and simple. Does it happen? Yes, it does happen. Not only in Qatar, but throughout many different areas. But this is where the Qatar World Cup is truly starting to leave a legacy. Our legacy when it comes to this issue has started 8 years ago. We have raised the standard in Qatar, which again served as a catalyst for the nation itself to raise its standards, to change legislation, in some areas to be a benchmark within the region. And today, Qatar, I'm very proud to say, is a benchmark by the recognition of some of our fiercest critics. ITUC was one of the fiercest critics and opponents of Qatar and the region when it came to worker welfare rights. And today, it commends us, and it commends the country for the bold steps that it's taken. But again, I reiterate, it is not the end of the journey. Our goal is that when the world shifts its focus to the next hosts, we do not stop our progress when it comes to worker welfare rights, that it continues. There is always room for improvement. There is always room to ensure that people do not get stepped over, people do not get disregarded when it comes to their human rights. And that's why, for me, on that particular issue, I'm very, very proud of the fact that the World Cup is there, because it's shed the light, it's shed the spotlight. We have heard the constructive criticism, and we are working to deliver on that.
Thank you. I fear there is no more time for any more questions because you have to. No, we must give. There is other debate after, and we have to respect the schedule. If it's a short one, okay.
You be I'm Aisha Bajalo. And I would like you to be our ambassador. Start early. Sports, starting from early childhood up to higher education. Please do it. And the curriculum in our schools. Please do it for us.
Okay, thanks, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
We will finish the session. I want to thank all the speakers. Perhaps a short conclusion. Sports is very important. It couldn't make everything, but it could make a lot of things. And the last example is a good one, how you could improve the situation by sports. Et aussi, la question des réfugiés, vous l'avez tous les quatre abordé. Aussi bien le responsable d'une fédération, d'une organisation internationale, d'un comité d'organisation et un champion à la tête d'une fondation. Et malheureusement, la question des réfugiés est devant nous. Et là, on voit concrètement comment le sport peut être un levier indispensable, formidable pour améliorer la situation des gens, plus ces autres exemples que vous donnez. Donc effectivement, comme vous l'avez tous dit, le sport n'est pas une baguette magique, mais c'est un levier extraordinaire et qu'il faut, dans les différentes positions qui sont les vôtres, utiliser ce que vous faites. Et pour cela, bravo à vous quatre.
Merci.